Okay. In and out, please. The Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Chief Advisor Smith, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of reflection. You may be seated.
The clerk will call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect.
Lauren Anderson, William Barnes, Timothy Barr, Amanda Blanton, Bella Brash, Natalia Beyer, William Costello, Emma Cumby, Kiki Dapolito, Grant Dworzowski, Nicholas Gavin Arriaga, Amelia Gay, Caleb Geddens, Kaylee Goodrich, Aiden Gruner, Zoe Hopkins, Daniel Wing, Muhammad Iftikhar, Anita John, Lakika Cassetti, Camden Kay, Tori Kerner, Mia LaPenta, Donnie Lapsley, Jeffrey Lyons, Jackson Matthews, Isabel Miller, Mackenzie Mozo, Bryson Peterson, Stone Pillsbury, Landon Pollock, Ainsley Reed, Rodrigo Rojas, Sarai Romali, Taylor Silkert, Lucas Solomon, Amaya Sowell, Thomas Spurgeon, William Wenzel, Lawson Windsor, Marion Winters.
With the quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of October 23rd, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Beyer, you are recognized to give a report on the Rules Committee.
Hello everybody, happy Wednesday. So rules met last Sunday at 5:30 as per usual on Teams because unfortunately our speaker was sick. We reviewed 5 pieces of legislation, all of which were found unanimously favorable, although one piece did have one abstention. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Speaker Pro Tempore? Seeing none, thank you. Can the record reflect that Vice Chairman Matthews is present? If you need a moment to dry off or anything, you're totally fine. Just, We will now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Anderson, you are recognized.
Hi guys, I hope everyone had a good week. Academics met right before this week, and just a couple updates. Senator Winters has a recommendation about additional classroom space for the Student Disability Resource Center, and then Senator Hopkins and the Deputy Secretary of Academics, Ainsley Martin, are working on some online class standards, and legislation should be coming next week regarding that. And then some other initiatives in the work include renting space on campus and study spot advertisement, which should also be coming with legislation in the coming weeks as well. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized.
The Finance Committee met at their normal time at 3:30 on Fridays. Along with normal allocations, we found SBL 11633 unfavorable, 36 favorable, and 38 favorable. We also had a vote to suspend Alpha Phi Omega from receiving funds for the remainder of the fiscal year. That was found favorable. This decision was made as during the reimbursement process, it was realized that the entirety of the funds that was requested by Alpha Phi Omega was actually used by IFC, and that is an unfundable organization per our codes. So with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Speaker, oh my goodness, the Chairman of the Finance Committee yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairman Gruner, you are recognized.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. So Health and Safety actually didn't meet on our normal meeting time since last week was Halloween. Our future plans are going to be continuing to work on the legislation that's coming through. We're also going to start looking at our next larger scale initiative that will either happen this semester or potentially be going into the spring. And finally, we're going to start working on potentially meeting with the Center of Health and Wellbeing coming up again soon to pursue our legislation pieces. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Chairwoman Cassetti, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are having a nice week. But Inclusion and Equity was not able to meet this week as it was election day during our meeting, so we did not meet. However, we've been making progress towards planning our event that we have planned for February, which we're really excited about, and we should have more updates coming on that, which we'll share as soon as they're ready. And I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. Can the record reflect that Senators Silker and Peterson are now present? We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Kay, you are recognized.
Good afternoon. As we had nothing on the agenda, Judiciary did not meet this Friday. I'll yield to any questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there anyone willing to give a report for the Powers and Responsibilities Committee? Senator DiPolito, you are recognized.
Hey guys, Powers met last Friday to interview 2 vacant Senate seat candidates. Both were found favorable. Powers will meet this Friday to interview the candidate for treasurer. I yield my time to questions.
The vice chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the vice chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairman Barnes, you are recognized to give a report.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Student Life met Monday at 5 in the LSC. During the meeting, we discussed our individual action plans and introduced the new senators to the committee. We're expecting 4 to 6 pieces of legislation to hopefully hit the floor before the end of the semester with those individual action plans. We also finalized our plan for the committee-wide initiative. For anyone that doesn't know, the Student Life Committee is hosting a Build-A-Bear themed event at the Homeless No More shelter. This is an organization that provides transitional housing and family services, such as after-school educational and social program for youth. That's where our event will take place. Along with that Build-A-Bear event, we're doing a Christmas toy drive starting today until December 6th to raise toys for the kids at the shelter. We're looking for donations for kids age 4 to 13, consisting of gender-neutral toys, educational toys, books, balls, cars, dolls, things like that. I'll be sending a graphic in the GroupMe following Senate, so please share that with any other org or club that you can. All the details I just said and more on that graphic, but if you have any questions, reach out. We're looking for people to do quick presentations at their club or org to kind of get the word out a little bit more. So if you're interested in doing that and comfortable, please let me know. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman LaPinta, you are recognized.
Hey guys, I apologize for my voice, I'm still a little bit sick. So Sustainability met at 6 p.m. on Monday. We usually meet in the LSC, but I was sick, so we met over Zoom. Just a couple updates. Senator Lyons has some new legislation coming through this week about battery recycling, which is super exciting. Senator Windsor and Iftikhar are looking into some back-end planning of the Carolina Closet Initiative in order for the actual event to potentially occur in the spring, which I'm super excited about. And then Senator Kerner and I are potentially looking into some codes revisions I was informed by Chairman Kay that there used to be a student sustainability fund committee, so we're kind of working on researching if that would even be efficient to have again, and if it is, potentially looking into reinstating it. So with that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from freshman council. Are there any representatives from freshman council willing to speak? Y'all are recognized. And when you get down here, just say your name and your hometown.
Hi everyone, my name is Audrey Loudon. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. I'm part of Freshman Council's Health and Safety Committee, and Maggie and I are here to kind of give a rundown on how our last meeting on Monday went. So the meeting opened up, we had our committee chairs give the committee reports, and it sounds like a lot of great work's been going on so far, with hopefully more to come. Put an asterisk by that. And then we also had the Elections Commissioner, Sean, give a small presentation about the upcoming interest meeting for anyone who's interested in running for an elected position on November 18th. So I think that'll be a great way for those of us who want to be in your shoes next year to learn more about that. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Maggie.
Hi everyone, my name is Maggie Lauder and I'm from Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and I'm a part of FROCO's Sustainability Committee. Our second guest of the meeting was the Director of Programming in VP staff, Brandon Burke. Bryn gave us a presentation on how to plan a programming event and walked us through the processes of submitting a 25 live request and a graphics request. Learning about all of the resources we have and how the programming team can help us promote our events was super helpful, and we'll definitely use this in the future. Thank you for your time. Have a good night, and we yield our time to questions.
The representatives yield their time to questions. Are there any questions for the representatives? Seeing none, thank you. Good job, y'all. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you are recognized.
Hope everyone's having a good day on this rainy evening. Per usual, nothing to report. Yield to questions.
The Chief Justice yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton. Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton, you are recognized. Sorry, y'all, Emmy is stuck in traffic. Not that much of an update from me. Thank you for giving me grace and patience. I was basically out every day from Thursday until yesterday, but obviously I would never ever miss Senate, so here I am today. Please reach out to me if you have any questions about the treasurer's nominee that we're going to be announcing in a few minutes. Just a reminder, that gets referred to Finance, Judiciary, and Powers and Responsibilities Committee. It needs to be approved by all three committees, and then it needs to be further approved by a 2/3 vote of Senate, so definitely thoroughly vetted by y'all as a body. But otherwise, I just want to say on behalf of Senator Goodrich, thank you so much for taking part of her Donuts and Dogs initiative. She unfortunately could not be here today due to a health issue, but she really, really wishes she could have been here. Obviously, that's why some of our senators are dressed down today, because they donated to the drive to help give back to that organization. But you all seem to have done amazing. I love seeing the photos. So sorry I wasn't there again. I really wish I could have. But with that, I yield my time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now hear a report from the Student Body Treasurer, President Patton Byers. You are recognized.
Just like you couldn't get enough of me. I want to give a little bit of an update about what's been going on effective literally like 45 minutes ago, whatever time it is. I have now been assumed the role of acting treasurer until a new one is confirmed. So once again, I know I couldn't be here and rescape my update last week, but I do want to thank you, former treasurer Jacob, and appreciate all the work you did. We had a lot of fun, and thank you for all you did, and personally, thanks for being a friend. Moving on to the future, we had a good week of interviews last week. A ton of qualified people to fill the role of treasurer. After completing lots of interviews and somewhat of an audit of this branch, I realized what was needed or what is going to be needed in the future, and that was someone who can really manage a team and delegate that team, make sure they're following the codes to the best of their abilities, and really work for the rest of the student body, similar to what Jacob did as well. That person for me, in my opinion, is Reese Lycan, my current chief of staff. I trust her. I know she's going to do a great job. And while it's certainly a big loss for my team, and we'll live, but I think that she's more needed in this role. And I'm sure that you all will see that in her interview and her process. And I'm sure you all will enjoy working with her. She's very collaborative and easy to work with as well. She has a ton of experience. Truman Scholar, our first Truman Scholar on our campus since 2019. So she's smart as a whip as well. So I trust her, and she has my complete and total endorsement. Also, as well, I've been preparing this past week to be the acting treasurer as well. So while looking for a new one, I'm looking to prepare myself as well. As soon as I finish my president update, which is in a few minutes, I will be going to my first treasurer's branch meeting as well, talking to our staff and making sure that we are leading and making sure that everything is still continuing on to the best of our abilities in that branch, even if there's no confirmed treasurer right at the second besides me. Yeah, I think that's it for the treasurer's branch, so I'll come back from the rest.
The student body president yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the student body vice president. Vice President Courtney Tax, you are recognized.
Hi everyone, I hope you had a great weekend. No, I did. So first of all, if you are getting a little, you should have received an email yesterday about information of who your little is. Just make sure you're at the LSC on Thursday at 7:30. We're going to be doing something similar to last year, but I'm not going to say anything or give anything away because we do have FROCA members here. But you'll find out 7:30. But if you have any questions, please reach out to me or my FROCA directors. We'd be happy to help. Again, if we send out a newsletter every single Sunday, if you would like something put into the newsletter, please make sure you fill out the form on Garnet Gate by 11:59 on Friday. If you have any questions, though, please reach out to your press secretary. And if you aren't receiving that newsletter, also reach out to your press secretary, and we can get you added onto that email chain. I had a meeting with the Board of Visitors about the community shop, and we're going to try to increase that relationship between the community shop and FSL. So we're going to meet again next Wednesday and hopefully create a partnership. But with that, we're also going to do a canned food drive sometime this month as well. And then additionally, we're also going to be partnering with Salvation Army and doing Angel Tree. This is going to be an internal and external event. So if you would be interested in adopting a child with a group of people, please let me know. I can get that all situated and squared away, but that's also going to be available to outside organizations as well. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The student body vice president yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the student body president. President Patton Byers, you are once again recognized.
Cool. So last Wednesday, I met with all of the college deans and provost last Wednesday to discuss important advocacy efforts like mental health, syllabi database, and quality of online classes, among some other things. It was actually a really good conversation. It wasn't too relative pushback on excused absence for well-being, but not to the point where as much as I expected, to be honest. So that was good. It was more of a productive conversation of how we can work to make these things happen in their individual colleges with respect to their faculty as well. So very good conversation for the most part. Also, we're able to advocate just today for students to have more of a say on who the opener should be at Coxstock. In case you weren't aware, they just announced today that our Coxstock headliner will be Quavo, and that is January 29th. And we're helping out very much so with the process of financially and advocating for a Coxstock opener. So we want to make sure that it's someone that actual students want. And to be frank, there's 12 people on a committee. How well are they going to know what 38,000 students want? So I want to make sure that we have a poll that we can at least get a little bit more evidence of what students want to look for in genre-wise at least. And we'll narrow it down from there. We also, the last week I took part in several homecoming traditions like Spurs and Struts. That's why I wasn't here last Wednesday. and 5 Points Block Party. We stormed the field. That was pretty cool. In case you guys wanted to know, that's $250,000 fine. So thanks for that. But it was worth it. I'm sure it was worth every penny, and I'm not the one paying, so I can say that. But I will say the next time we do storm the field, and there will be a next time, it will be $500,000. And all of that money goes to the school that we just played. So Texas A&M gets a little bit richer. So awesome. Also attended Trick or Treat at the President's House. It was a great time. There was a ton of students there. I know Freshman Council was there in attendance, so we appreciate you all being there. And that was a really good time. Just a few reminders now. We're going to have SG-wide at some point next week, and I'm forgetting the date off the top of my head, but Courtney and Maura will give you guys that information tomorrow. We'll make sure that gets out to you and when and where and all of that good stuff. Reminder of the bill that passed several weeks ago about SG-wides being mandatory. Next Wednesday, I'm doing a Pie the President, because who doesn't want to pie me? So that will be to raise money with Dance Marathon. So it'll be for a great cause. We're also doing Forever to the rivalry. That's really going to ramp up, obviously, the week before we play Clemson, because the week of is Thanksgiving break, and we have that. And due to student government Senate advocacy from several years ago, we don't have school during the entirety of Thanksgiving break. So we're going to be doing the celebrations the week before. So Tiger Burn will be the Wednesday before we get out of class for Thanksgiving break, and we're going to do some other things. I know that engineering fraternity, I forget the name, is doing a breaking like a slam of a bat with a car. Chairman Wenzel would probably have the answers for y'all on what fraternity that is in the engineering school. Oh, maybe he would. I don't know. Nevertheless, we're working with them, and that's my Deputy Secretary of Athletics, Pearson Dillon. He's also working on creating a student cockpit club with athletics, which is really, really cool, which is something that many other schools have, specifically within their student governments, where they can advocate to the athletics with a board, so to speak, but also it's like a pep team. Think of it like that. That can get more school spirit and more ideas. I know it's very similar to what we do in student life, or what y'all do in student life, and it's very similar to what we do in my branch as well. Kind of like an idea team that can think of fun things that we could do. I think it's a little bit of funding from athletics that we can make sure the student experience and the student experience for athletic games is as good as it can be. Yeah, so one other thing is, just as an FYI, probably you guys want to know, happy to answer questions on Clemson, the school we don't talk about, in the upstate, raised a student fee, which I would argue is raising of tuition again. We have not yet for in-state students in 7 years, I believe, since like 2016, so 8 years. One thing about that, though, that was a student athlete fee, so that money goes to their athletics department. I believe it was a $250 fee, and it was originally like $100 per semester. So they're raising their that fee. So that does not including their student athletic tickets. So they still have to pay for their football tickets. So while we have a lot of things we can work on, we have it good here when it comes to partnerships with athletics and accessibility and affordability when it comes to athletics as well. That could change. We're in a new world of NIL. We're in a new world where athletics need more money more than ever. We're going to fight back on that, and we'll fight hard, but that's going to be up to the next generation of student leaders to fight on that one. But I do want to keep y'all posted on that. I yield to questions.
The student body president yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the student body president? Seeing none, thank you. Sorry, y'all. I was holding that in the whole time. We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Office of the Student Body President concerning the nomination for the position of Student Body Treasurer. Reese Lycan.
The nominee is referred to the Finance, Powers and Responsibilities, and Judiciary Committees. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Office of the Speaker of the Student Senate concerning the resignation of Tate Few from the position of Student Senator.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Speaker of the Student Senate concerning committee assignments. Lucas Solomon, Tommy Spurgeon, Powers and Responsibilities, Student Life, and Sustainability Committees.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read. Seeing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor at this time? Senator Galvin Arriaga. There's been a motion to remove Senator Galvin Arriaga from the Sustainability Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Galvin Arriaga. There's been a motion to add Senator Galvin Arriaga to the Academics Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Pollock. There's been a motion to remove Senator Pollock from the Sustainability Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Barnes. There's been a motion to remove Chairman Barnes from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Huang. There's been a motion to remove Senator Huang from the Judiciary Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator D'Appolito. There's been a motion to remove Senator D'Appolito from the Sustainability Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Chairman Kaye. There's been a motion to confirm Lucas Solomon and Tommy Spurgeon to the position of student senator. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The nominees are now confirmed. Chairman Kaye. There's been a motion to suspend the rules to allow the nominees to take their oath of office. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now suspended. Y'all can head on up here.
State your name. State your name. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Tommy Spurgeon,
Do solemnly pledge to faithfully execute
do solemnly pledge to faithfully execute
the office of student senator,
the office of student senator,
to abide by the student government constitution and codes,
to abide by the student government constitution and codes,
to uphold the Carolinian Creed,
to uphold the Carolinian Creed,
and to represent my constituents to the best of my ability.
and to represent my constituents to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Y'all can go ahead and you can sit in the middle with everybody else now. Chairman Kaye. There's been a motion to reinstate the rules. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now reinstated. Continuing on with the motion period, are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Chairman Kaye. There's been a motion to amend SBL 33 to SBL 33 with Amendment 1. Does the sponsor find this favorable or unfavorable? All right. All in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is now amended. Senator Solomon. There's been a motion to remove Senator Solomon from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense of this motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Is there a motion to take a brief recess to amend SBL 1633 in the Google Drive? Without objection, so ordered. No, you do. It's exactly the same. It's just the text changed. I got it though. I'm moving it in. It's already done and changed. Like it's the same. It's just there's wording in the bill that's changed. Mhm. Is the coughing like really annoying? I feel really bad. All right. The Senate will now come to order. We are now on the first reading calendar and are on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11639, introduced by the Finance Committee, a recommendation to permit the Finance Committee to allocate funds.
Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hello, everyone. Finance Committee reviewed $2,389.33 and improved $1,346.83. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any motions on the floor? Vice Chairman Matthews. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11639 by unanimous consent. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11640, introduced by Senator Winters, a recommendation to provide additional classroom space in closed HIP to the Student Disability Resource Center.
Senator Winters, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hi everyone, my name is Marion. I'm a newer senator, so it's nice to meet all of you if I haven't met you already. And I represent Carolina Life. So this is my first piece of legislation, and it's a recommendation to provide additional classroom space and closed HIP to the Student Disability Resource Center. So we all know that undergraduate enrollment has continued to increase over the past few years. So with that increased enrollment, there's more demand for alternative testing services through the SDRC. And the SDRC is having issues meeting this demand. They're currently facing a shortage of testing space, especially during high demand exam periods, so like midterms and finals. Likely for midterms, they actually had to borrow testing space from other university offices. So this is really an urgent issue. And I met with the director, and she also said that the SDRC may soon be forced to turn away students since they just don't have enough testing space, and we don't want that. And she also said that there is classroom space in closed HIP. There's like two classrooms in the same wing as the current testing centers. So she said that there's really an opportunity to convert those classrooms into testing spaces for the SDRC. So yeah, with that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Student Life and Health and Safety Committees. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11641, introduced by Senator Castillo, a resolution to honor the centennial of the University of South Carolina School of Music, recognizing its legacy of excellence and urging its highest virtues.
Senator Castillo, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hello, everyone. My resolution is called Resolution to Honor the School of Music Centennial and Urge its Highest Virtues. The reason is this year we are celebrating the School of Music's centennial. It was founded in 1924, and it's pursued a century of excellence and cultivated very high ideals in music. This year, it's marked by a special concert series. We've had new works commissioned by faculty and alumni. We just had our orchestra concert with our composition faculty composing some works for that. This year is also marked by the historic Carolina Band playing in the Macy's Day Parade. So that will be a very good way to showcase our school, and there's very many people that are proud of this. And as recently, we've overcome a lot of things with the pandemic, online learning and those things. We have a very great inclusion and equity program, and we're doing a really good job of preserving Southern music and showcasing music of the black musicians. And we consistently compete with other music schools, conservatories, and we have one of the most competitive audition processes in the nation. We've had a lot of public concerts recently. Just yesterday, we had a concert that I performed in outside of Russell House. We've had the Ears Wide Open series where we brought public concerts to campus. And I think it's important to recognize all these great accomplishments of the School of Music, and that's what my resolution seeks to do. I thank you all for your support, and I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairman Barnes. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11641 by acclamation. Seeing no objections, the legislation is now adopted. Congratulations. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11642, introduced by Senator Lyons, a recommendation to encourage the university to ensure all students in on-campus residences have access to battery recycling receptacles.
Senator Lyons, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Well, good evening, everybody. So this piece of legislation is about battery recycling receptacles in on-campus residences. So basically, I live in Preston. It's right across on Green Street. And so basically in our dorm, we have a battery recycling station. This is for like AA batteries, AAA batteries, watch batteries, anything like that. And it's like this big container that we have in our dorm, and it actually is used and it gets filled up. And so I just was looking into this, and not all residences have these containers on campus. So we thought it would be important for students to be able to recycle batteries properly, because when batteries are thrown in the trash, they end up in landfills, and they can leak like toxic waste into our water systems and things like that. And it's bad for the health of animals and also humans and just the environment in general. So this is just recommending that the university make sure that all residences have these. And we actually reached out to the director of residence life, I believe, and he said the university has this on order to have these in every residence. So this is basically just affirming what they're already doing and just saying that we support these actions so that students can recycle batteries. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Chairwoman LaPinta. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11642 by acclamation. There's been an objection. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more motions on the floor at this time, this legislation is now referred to the Sustainability Committee. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11643, introduced by the Inclusion and Equity Committee, a recommendation to modify the faculty research database to easily find researchers that are accepting students for the current academic term.
Chairwoman Cassetti, you are recognized to speak on this legislation. Also, just a quick reminder, if somebody objects to a passage of unanimous consent, it's not a negatively connotated thing at all. It's just saying that they'd rather it go to committee for review.
Firstly, I would like to request the members of Inclusion and Equity to come up here on, I don't know what this is called, maybe the stage or like the podium, the dais, whatever term you guys want to go with, but. So firstly, I think what I wanted to talk about is the reason why we decided to pursue this legislation is essentially a big goal of our committee from the beginning has been trying to find ways to encourage students to get involved on campus and to find opportunities on campus. And as part of this, we kind of decided to focus on research for the first half and trying to encourage students to get involved in research. And through this, we've kind of tried to find areas where we can improve, I guess, research and encouraging students to getting started within research. So as a part of this, we met with the director of the undergraduate research office, and based off of this, we kind of gathered some information of areas we could improve on, and one of this was the faculty research database. So the faculty research database is a database that is run by the undergraduate research office, and it basically allows students to filter faculty research members based off of like their research interests and also other things like their department, et cetera, But I guess the thing that the faculty research database doesn't have and is only mentioned for a few faculty members is faculty members that are actively looking for students. So if you guys, I'm pretty sure many of you guys have been on the run to find research opportunities, and the first step to that is frantically emailing and mass emailing a bunch of researchers that align with your research interests. So essentially this recommendation would ease that process by allowing you to identify researchers that are looking for students in the current academic term. So this recommendation proposes that the undergraduate research office actively collects information about researchers that are looking for students and also updating the faculty research database accordingly, and to add a search option to where they can filter research or faculty members based off of that. And something to include here is this sort of system with the faculty research database is something already established in universities like the University of North Carolina and also the University of Texas. Their faculty research database allows students to search and filter faculty members based off of not only research interests and department, but also whether they are looking for students or not. And if you guys have anything to add to that, okay. Would you like, okay. But anyways, I yield my time, or our time, to questions.
The committee yields their time to questions. Are there any questions on the floor at this time? All right. Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Academics Committee. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read. Seeing none, that completes the call of, is there a motion on the floor? Chairman Kay? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. My mom just called me, which is really weird, so I'm gonna. You just do it. My mom just called me, which is really weird. She wouldn't call me during that.
We're still in recess for another 2 minutes. Still in recess for another 2 minutes. Wait, I'm supposed to. Well, yes, but. got 20 seconds.
Yeah, I know. Did you edit it?
Did I edit what?
The thing you did editing?
For what?
What were you asking me about?
Oh, his,
Whose?
senators, sorry, I thought you were talking about something else. Also, my bills were up. I couldn't take the stand. Are you talking about this?
Yeah, I thought you were saying there was a typo over there.
No, there's a typo in senators.
That'll probably just. That will be fixed. If it's not consequential. I think you were saying yours did. Okay. That's fine.
No, mine doesn't.
Well, that was good timing because my mom called me.
It was.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Sorry, y'all. My mom called me, so I thought something was seriously wrong. And then she thought today was Thursday and didn't realize I was in Senate. So she apologized to all y'all. But we are now on the call of the uncontested second reading calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11636, introduced by Chairman Kaye, a bill to amend Chapter 3 of these student government codes to relax restrictions relating to international travel for tournaments.
Senator Kaye, you are recognized to speak on this bill.
Sorry about that. I thought I had to take over the duties of the speaker for a moment. I was a little nervous. Wasn't ready for that. All right, so this bill, y'all have already heard what it does before, but effectively it removes the restrictions on international travel. This has been indicated. I'll get a little closer. As I've mentioned previously, this was created primarily because people didn't want to do the paperwork. I always believe that while paperwork is the necessity of a society, it also shouldn't prevent us from doing things that we want to do and or love to do. International travel could be an incredible opportunity for individuals to go outside of this country and embolden both the name of this university as well as our own prestige. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. Given that this was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote on the legislation. All those in favor of passage, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11637, introduced by Chairwoman LaPinta, a recommendation to demonstrate student support for the university's request to fund a STARS consultant to collect data on sustainability efforts across campus.
Senator LaPinta, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hey guys, so same thing as last week. This really is just kind of to put pen to paper and say that the students really want this to happen. They want the funding for a STARS consultant to come to campus in order to facilitate a climate action plan to be written. If you have any questions, I will yield.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. Given that it is on the uncontested second reading calendar, all those in favor of passage say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the uncontested calendar, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11638, introduced by Chairman Kaye, bill to allocate funds for student government for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Chairman Kaye, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Never gone for very long up here, I know. All right. So with the adoption of SBL 34, it was mandated that a bill that establishes a budget, a yearly budget for our external organizations, has to be adopted. This is just setting this up. It is, at this point, pretty much purely just to make sure we're following the codes that we have now established. I'll yield to any questions if there are.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Seeing that this was on the uncontested calendar, we will now move to a voice vote on this legislation. All those in favor of passage say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is now adopted. Was that like extra loud, or did I just make that up in my head? Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Moving on, we are now in the contested second reading calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11633, introduced by Chairman Kay and Vice Chairman Matthews. A bill to amend Chapter 3 of the Student Government Codes to relax restrictions on allocation requests.
Senators Kay and Matthews, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Sorry, I was just making sure I had the right amended version on my piece. I'm going to quickly go over what this bill does and some of the changes and why I think they're necessary, as well as some of the objections that I've heard and my general response to them. This bill does really one of two things. It allows the Finance Committee to operate within a 2/3 vote to ignore a rule that has been established mandating a 15-day period for university allocation requests. Now, there are a couple problems with this. The first being, I think, generally a 15 university day period. I would ask if anyone wants to raise their hand, they can. Who actually here knows what a university day is? Raise your hand if you do. Okay, that's not a very encouraging amount. Who knew what a university day was before they got elected to be a senator? Okay, so some of the same hands, but not that many. So one of the particular issues that I have with this piece of legislation right now, or with the codes as they stand right now, is most people don't understand what a university day is. It is a day in which the university is in class, which discludes weekends, it discludes election day, it discludes freak accidents like hurricanes. And so what we have is we are handing out people that they have to meet this requirement, this 15-day requirement. And most of the senators who their job is to know these codes may or may not know what that is. And that's deeply troubling that we should expect organizations who do not have the ability to serve inside this body should also then know what these rules are. It can be a little bit dangerous there. And I think it's incredibly important that we show some leniency and some grace to organizations that may miss these deadlines because of this requirement and because of just ignorance, that piece being. So this allows us to effectively, in some respects, ignore this rule with a 2/3 vote. Now, the 2/3 is a very common vote that we use inside a finance committee when we're looking to go past measures. The $10,000 limit is exceeded by a 2/3 vote. The ability to restrict an organization from funding for the year is done through a 2/3 vote. So this is something that we have established as a precedent for when we are looking to ignore or exceed the certain limitations that are already existing. Now, this piece has a second piece, or this bill has a second piece that I think is incredibly important, and it has to do with those who are affected by this potential legislation. What the second piece does is it gives the Finance Committee a one-time set obligation or ability to fund organizations that were denied in the previous rounds of allocations that would have been affected by this rule, which still means it has to go through the process. It has to go through the committee reports and the committee obligations. It will just allow the committee to relook at these organizations that we promised money to and then denied because of an arbitrary rule. It will give them the authority once to look back and try and fund them. I think we owe it to the organizations and to the constituents that we represent to do the best of our ability and make the most diligent options that we can. And I think we failed them as a body and as the Senate did. I think we did. $40,000 was denied based off this rule. This hasn't been applied too well in the last year. I think that's a real shame that we're punishing people. And so I think a one-time fix to this, ensuring that in the future this rule is maintained, but better described, better given to people, but for right now, fixing the problem that we have on hand, I think is incredibly important. I also understand that this is in extreme power. I know that. People have brought that up to me. And so inside of this was done through the amendment, is a sunset clause, which means after 30 days, after we have a transitory period with a new treasurer and a period where misinformation may be prevalent, after 30 days, this section and the sections wherein will cease to be binding and be struck by the codes unless the Senate specifically decides to recreate them, which means this is a temporary power. It has been created that way intentionally. We are looking to give the Finance Committee some capacity to deal with pressing times and really high concerns in a time where we don't have a treasurer or the treasurer is learning their new obligations, as well as in a time period where rules have and have not been followed, and we're looking to institute a more strict formal set of provisions for allocation requests. I think moving forward is important. I think punishing people because they didn't follow rules that we thought were there or didn't know were there, I think that's bad. So I'm looking to make sure the people who we would have punished aren't punished, that we protect them, our constituents, and the organizations that we're meant to represent and fund, while also ensuring that we don't hand too much power over to bodies that may make these decisions. Now, I'm happy to have any questions. I also would like to, before I start, I also would like to ask if anybody does have particular objections to this bill. I'm happy to let them speak, and I want to talk with them. But I'd also like them to have a solution if they can, because I've talked with many, many people over this bill about both the concerns and the promissory notes. And what I have failed to hear is someone with a genuine or half-decent solution that meets the problems that this bill has. And so if you are going to come up here and debate, I would like to ask you if you are willing to answer what your response would be. With that, if you have anything to lead.
I mean, honestly, this is just writing a really just an unfortunate set of events that we had where we had to deny $40,000 worth of funds because of mistakes made by the orgs and also by the student government in some ways. And so this is just fixing that. And it also, the amendment addresses one of the chief concerns by the Finance Committee was that if you were to imagine a terrible Senate, like the worst, filled with the worst senators possible, obviously the opposite of what we have here, they could absolutely abuse this power. And so this would expire after 30 days. It's that, so we don't have to worry about that issue with that amendment. So I yield back to Chairman Kay.
I think we'll yield to questions.
Speaker Pro Tempore Byer. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Barnes as Speaker Pro Tempore Byer's proxy. Is there a second?
Second.
Without objection, so ordered. Speaker Pro Tempore Byer. Granted. Senator Brash.
So very similar, what I can't say for that. So we do have a precedent for refunding organizations after the event occurred in special situations. Doing so through legislation is less common, but has happened. This would allow the Finance Committee to effectively bring it back up for second consideration, even if the events have already happened. Again, as a one-time kind of large power, that's the intent behind that, is that they do this once to make sure we right a wrong, and then once that happens, and the committee could decide, they submitted 6 days in advance, which even is nowhere close to 15 days, they could decide that, that is not grounds for that. But I think handing this power to them, I trust the Finance Committee. I think the people running it are really, really good people, and I don't see them using this clause in a very negative way. I see this as a very big positive for those people. So that's my hope, is that they use this to the best of their ability, and that's all we can ask for any senator.
Chairman Barnes.
Mm-hmm. Academic semesters. This excludes university holidays, Saturday and Sunday, reading day, and final
You're absolutely correct. That was put in the last round of allocations. It didn't exist until this year. My point still stands that the senators whose goals and obligations it is to know these codes oftentimes don't. So I think it's unfair to have organizations that are not, whose objectives aren't to necessarily understand or know those codes to the best of their ability. I feel like punishing them for not doing so is a negative on us.
Chairman Barnes.
So I may have this wrong, so correct me if not.
Absolutely.
Is it not a comptroller's role to tell them that when they're trying to submit a request, if they're not meeting that 15-day deadline, that they've already failed to meet that?
It is, but we have 55% of the allocations that have occurred from this year have ignored that rule. That's a significant number, and that I think speaks a lot more to the system than anything else.
I just want to clarify, I'm not sure if 55% is the correct statistic.
It is.
Chairman Barnes.
So with that,
Mhm.
in regards to failure to the system, would you say
Yeah.
it's a failure of the Treasury branch that those requests were either granted an extension, so maybe not extension, but they were given money when they weren't supposed to?
That I'm not 100% sure about. What I do know is the Treasurer's branch has no capacity to engage in change, so they very well might have seen an error or a problem with the system and then retroactively attempted to fix it inside their own branch. Probably not the best way to do it, but I do think the Treasurer's branch does not have the capacity to enact that change, nor do they really have the capacity to engage in enacting that change, which I think is a huge negative on the system. We're looking to get that fixed. But as it stands right now, they didn't have that capacity.
Senator Miller.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So 55% were allowed to receive funding despite breaking that rule. So we don't, they've already been funded. Yeah, but we can't go back to all of them and say, you have to give us our money back. We've already met that piece. We could restrict them from funding. That is absolutely within the power and scope of the Finance Committee. But my point still remains is we've funded all of these organizations throughout the year. 55% of our allocations, that's a significant number. We just started enforcing this rule to its fullest effect, and we're now punishing the people who missed that deadline. We've done it for so many other people. I think it's a real shame to not allow certain others.
Senator Peterson.
What grounds would the finance committee have to choose for certain others that are allowed to break the rule or allowed to bring, you brought up for reconsideration?
What grounds?
Yes, like you're saying.
So,
Okay, approve request submitted less than 15 days before.
yeah,
If
that is the grounds.
agrees.
Yeah.
How are they supposed to agree whether or not to let in more resources?
That's ultimately up to the Finance Committee's decision. They make the decision on who receives funding already. They make the decisions on who can break certain provisions, the $10,000 rule. That's decided by the Finance Committee. I would give that power over to them. There's a reason why, and I've said this to so many people, there's a reason why I'm not in Finance Committee. It is because I don't want to make rules and then use them. I like to hand power over to people that I think would best utilize that power, best serve it. So that, I think, the grounds would be whether they violated that rule, for whether they could be brought back up.
Senator Gettins.
Sure. No worries. Mhm. Yeah. From the get-go, because I can speak a lot of what I know. I'm not inside of the Finance Committee. I don't know their day-to-day operations. So that is more of a you question.
Absolutely can take it.
So if you
You'd
want
like
to take
me
that.
So it was 55%. made it through our committee without us realizing that those requests did not meet the funding deadline or the submission deadline. Typically, the Finance Committee does not look at that specific provision because it's not something that the Finance Committee, usually if a request doesn't meet that provision, it doesn't even get to Finance Committee, so it's not something that we typically even look at. The only reason why we caught these ones was because it was just after fall break, I believe, and we wanted to make sure that the events that we were looking at accounted for the fact that there was those 2 extra days plus Election Day, because some of the events are happening this week. We want to make sure that they abided by that rule too, because we thought, okay, well, it would be an easy mistake to make if you didn't see that these events didn't abide by that rule, because it's if you're just counting down the calendar, I mean, just your standard calendar on your computer is not going to have, oh, this is University Day, this is not. So it would be an easy mistake to make on the Treasurer's Branch side to push those through. And so we checked that, and we found a huge number of requests that did not abide by that rule. And so that is kind of what happened on that day. That's why we denied that $40,000, because they did not meet the deadline.
Senator Geddens, a follow-up question?
So, as previously mentioned, the university days are already defined. It's not a matter of whether they're defined inside of the section, it's whether people read that and actually understand it. Again, I've mentioned this over and over and over. The obligations of senators is to read and understand the codes. The fact that some of the senators don't know what that is semi-concerning. But I also think it speaks to the fact that we're dealing with a 188-page document with, just to be honest, a lot of problems with it. That's why we go and fix it. It's why when events like this happen, we take steps to mitigate the problems. We've identified an issue. We've found a potential solution. There are a billion other solutions that probably could be thought of, but either they're not timely, because we do have an issue where funding allocations cease in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, or we run into the issue of them being implausible. And so this is a solution that is meant to be a temporary fix to a problem that we're hoping will go away by itself. The intent is that this rule gets enforced more profusely in the future, but for right now, it's had an issue. And so my goal is to not punish those who were unable to meet the rule because they weren't aware of the situations or the rules, whatever that happened to be, while also ensuring that in the future, like, this gets addressed.
Chairwoman Anderson.
So I don't believe so. So to my knowledge, this is one of the first times a sunset clause has actually been utilized. I'm sure there's been 1 or 2. Generally for events, initiatives, those can be utilized to make sure that they're a one-time thing or they occur within a set period. Sunset clauses are utilized by basically every governmental body in existence. If you go to the State House, it's very, very short walk over and read through their code of laws. It is filled to the brim with them for every organization, every initiative, every entity. So sunset clauses as a piece I don't think are particularly threatening. I think it has much more to what they are attached to. And I think if the Senate finds something that is incredibly problematic attached to a sunset clause, then it's absolutely within their right to decide what to do with that. Same thing with this bill. But I don't think sunset clauses in of themselves are particularly threatening or dangerous. They're just a piece of legislation. A couple words on a paper.
Senator Mozo.
You're good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think the best answer to that would be both the scale and the scope, primarily because we had a rule that wasn't being followed, it was being ignored, and then it started being followed and started being implemented in full. and then people got denied. This wasn't something where people were just breaking the rules and we told them well in advance with understanding that you are breaking the rules. This is something where people were allowed to break the rules, and then we started punishing them after a set time. So I think the scope is a little bit different. I also think the monetary value is a little bit different. We're not dealing with one organization that lost $600. We're talking about 7 or 8 organizations that lost a collective total of $40,000, including an organization with $12,000 of credit card debt now. Like, that's our fault. We caused that. And I feel I'm not part of that process in any way, shape, or form, but I still feel responsible for that because I represent these bodies and I represent those students.
Chairman Barnes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you like to answer?
Wait, which bill are you talking about that made it past committee that? Okay. I mean, like, maybe. Like, listen, this is something that, as like, if you were to look back historically, it's not something that we ever have to check for anyways, because during the normal running of events of this system that we have in place, it's the 15 university deadline. That is not something that we ever have to even consider. We look at other things normally, interpretations of the codes and whatever. It's not, so like you could, I guess technically, yeah, you could consider it a failure of the finance committee. But, you know, that's what we're trying to rectify here.
I'm just going to clarify real quickly about the finance process. So an organization submits a request, goes to the treasurer's branch first. The treasurer's comptrollers, they review all the paperwork to make sure the paperwork is submitted correctly. Dates and times on that are good to go. It's within the university days, things like that. Then it goes through risk assessment. Then at the very end, once all of that paperwork stuff is done, then it's sent to the finance committee. So the assumption is that all of their paperwork is within the proper dates, times, that the numbers add up and things like that. And then finance committee typically only is looking for clarification on the actual content of what is being requested for, nothing that has to do with paperwork, given past precedent. Senator Brash.
As far as I'm aware, it's all about the original submission, not about the edits, because we've gone through a lot of these submissions are edited, and that's something that I remember we brought it up last Friday because we saw that it was edited, and if the final submission was the one that counted, then yes, that would have disqualified it. But I don't remember who it was who cleared it up. But no, it's all about the first submission, not the later ones.
Are there any other questions? Senator Gettins. There's been a motion to the previous question. We would move to a period of debate on this bill because it's on the contested calendar. So are there no other questions for the senators? Senator Miller.
I mean, that's correct. They did not follow the 15 university deadline. However, it was also like, I would say it's unreasonable for us to expect every single student in the university who's requesting money to understand all the little intricacies that are in the student government code. So it is partially on us to communicate that, and it was on us a failing to correctly administer this rule.
If I can add just a little bit. I know I'm beating a little bit of a dead horse here. I just wanted to reiterate, again, this rule has been ignored for the better part of half a year. It's not a matter of whether they broke the rules, it was the fact that the rules were being broken by many, many people along the line. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know. But they were being violated, which means at this point, at that time of enforcement, people may or may not have been under the understanding that they would have been funded. Had we continued with the policy of ignoring the 15-day limit, they would have been funded. I know it's not a great argument, but I also know it's one that exists, and I know we don't have a better answer, because we can let them be out 12 grand and 40 collectively for all the organizations, or we can fix a mistake that we made.
Senator Mozo.
I don't know. Sorry, that's the treasurer's branch. I not there.
Senator Barnes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Was there a question in there or just a statement? Because that was not a. If I can't answer it, I'll try to the best of my ability to answer a statement. Yeah. Are you a member of student government? Okay, so as part of being inside of student government, right? Irregardless of branch, irregardless of what you're doing, what you're planning on doing, you're there to represent constituents. You're there to represent organizations, which are made of up your constituents, right? So it doesn't matter who takes the blame. It matters who fixes the problem. And we've been given an opportunity to fix the problem. I don't care who takes the blame. I can take the blame for all I care. But I want to make sure people come out of this okay.
Follow-up question, Chairman Barnes? We have a debate period because this is on the contested legislation. Yeah.
If you have a potentially better solution, I'm happy to hear it. But so far, the solution that I've heard from people is either we don't do anything about it and we just hope it rights itself, or we change the university day period from 15 to a lower number. And nobody wants that because we do need the 15 days occasionally for that administrative time.
Just a quick point of information, the only persons that can speak during this time are sworn-in senators, not members of the body.
Yeah, and then another thing I'd like to point out is like we can go back and debate after the fact, like whether or not like, we can go and look at the comptrollers and maybe we can look at them, maybe we can pass some legislation to try to do some reforms in there. But the question at hand is about this $40,000 that was rejected for really, I mean, hardly a reason, honestly, looking at the past precedents. And so that's the question at hand is if we're going to fix this mistake or not.
Senator Miller.
I believe so. If I'm not mistaken, the Treasurer's Manual does include that, yes.
It's included in the PowerPoint presentation that's presented to them at the workshop.
But again, what we tell people and what we enforce are different things. And right now, they're different. They have been different.
Senator Miller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. True. But as I mentioned previously, when I asked senators, whose job it is to know the codes, what a university day is, a good many of them could not answer. The codes are complicated, they're long, and sometimes they suck. I know. I've been working on them for the better part of a year and a half now. You can't sit there and say, I think, at least, you can't sit there and offer any grace to organizations or individuals that may have suffered because of us. in any way, shape, or form, even if they broke the rules. If they were under the expectation or anticipation that they weren't breaking the rules, they were told they weren't breaking the rules, or just they didn't realize, or no one realized that it was an issue up until then, I still think it wrong to punish them for doing so.
Chairwoman LaPinta. There's been a motion to appoint Chairman Gruner as Chairwoman LaPinta's proxy. Is there a second? Second. Chairwoman LaPinta. Granted. Jesus. Senator Gettins. There's been a motion to move to a period of debate. Is there a second?
Second.
Without objection, so ordered. We're now on, goodness gracious, can I speak today? We are now on a period of debate on this legislation. Do any senators wish to speak on this matter? Let's start with Chairwoman Cassetti. You get up and talk. Yeah.
So I think, again, this is a legislation we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks, I believe. But based on the conversation we've been having, I was thinking about the point that Senator Kay and the other senator had highlighted.
Matthews.
Senator Matthews had highlighted. But in regards to that, the point that they had highlighted was the fact that they had already approved funding for the 55% of funding was approved for organizations that did not follow that guideline of submitting information within 15 days. So this is, I think what was mentioned was that 55% of funding acceptations or whatever had been done for organizations that had not met the 15-day deadline. So if that provision was made, I don't understand, personally, I don't understand, and I don't think my constituents should be obligated to, not getting funding based on, because a lot of the issues seem like an issue on both our part and also not acknowledging or educating our constituents enough about this rule. And a lot of the concerns I feel like the Senate is bringing up are things that can be modified after the sunset clause. I feel like there is time, and these exact modifications can be made at a later time. And I think for right now, as Senator Kay had mentioned, what the bill/legislation is doing, it's doing something for a 30-day period, and for that 30-day period, I think that what has been suggested through this is very much suitable for the current circumstances that student government has, and so does the student body. And that's all I kind of wanted to say.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. Senator Lapsley? The entire period of debate? Okay. It can mean 2 minutes per person or 2 minutes for the entire debate. All right. There's been a motion to limit debate to 2 minutes per person. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? There is division on the floor. We will now move to a roll call vote. The clerk will call the roll. I can't clearly discern the vote from that.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Kiki Diapolito. Grant Dworsnowski. Nicholas Gavin Arriaga. Amelia Gay. Caleb Gettins. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Huang, Muhammad Iftikhar, Anita John, Lakika Cassetti, Camden Kay, Tori Kerner, Neela Penta, Donnie Lapsley, Jeffrey Lyons, Jackson Matthews, Isabel Miller, Mackenzie Mozo, Bryson Peterson, Stone Pillsbury, Landon Pollock, Ainsley Reed, Sarai Ramali, Rodrigo Rojas, Taylor Silker, Lucas Solomon, Maya Sowell, Thomas Spurgeon, William Wenzel, Lawson Windsor, Marion Winters.
Senator Barnes. There's been a motion to take a 3-minute recess. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Motion for like Amanda to proxy for Senator Goodrich.
Sorry, I was like, I heard him no, didn't know. I was like, oh.
Do you understand though, Kim, do you understand my Robert's rule standing on the division, conflict is not the right word, I couldn't discern, which is, that was fair, clearly. they can see that we don't care. But we're gonna, and then attendance was taken. Yeah, but she's back right now. Simone, we're gonna take attendance again. So will you copy and paste the chart from up top? And, yeah, and then redo attendance. And when they do, I've been meaning to tell you this for forever. Yeah, so when they do a roll call vote, same thing, find me and what they voted for. Okay, we're gonna start. No, don't. Okay. What? The Senate will now come to order. The clerk will call the roll to certify attendance.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Kiki Dippolito. Grant Dworzowski. Nicholas Gavin Arriaga. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Wang. Mohammed Iftikhar. Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mila Penta. Donnie Lapsley. Jeffrey Lyons. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Landon Pollock. Ainsley Reed. Soraya Romali. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Silkert. Lucas Solomon. Maya Sowell. Thomas Spurgeon. William Wenzel. Lawson Windsor. Marion Winters.
The quorum is now certified. By a vote of 28 nays to 11 ayes, the motion to limit debate it to 2 minutes per person has failed. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Senator Blanton? There's been a motion to appoint Senator Geddens as Senator Blanton's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Blanton? Granted. Chairman Gruner? There's been a motion to appoint Senator Hopkins as Senator Goodrich's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Kerner? There's been a motion to appoint Chairwoman Anderson as Senator Kerner's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Kerner? Granted. All right, seeing no more motions, we are on the period of debate of SBL 11633. If any other senators are wishing to speak on this bill at this time. Senator Silkert, you are recognized.
Hi everyone. For those that don't know me too well yet, I'm Taylor Silkert, representing the College of Arts and Sciences. And while I do appreciate and support how Senator Kay and Matthews described this bill, I would also like to point out that Other than just student organizations maybe not knowing the codes as well as some of us, I would also like to point out that many of them, thinking that they submitted them 15 days, university days prior to their event, also run into inconsistencies with comptroller and treasurer's review as they have to pass those stages before finance committee. And during those stages, sometimes they might get through comptroller review, and while this is a semi-lengthy process, they might get a week and a half in and be told that they need to change their request. And doing so, that next submission where they are asked to change their request is no longer in those 15 university days, and many of my constituents have become worried and have not received funding due to those inconsistencies going through the finance branch for reimbursement, which has caused issues as well. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Rojas.
As they should. However, we have come across situations within my constituents where when they do submit that first request, if they get through comptroller and then get to treasurer's review, they are sometimes asked to, for instance, change a travel request to a budget request or so on and so forth, vice versa. And when they change those requests and kind of edit their documents in order to make those changes and have the correct documents for reimbursement, they will then count that second submission that's really the same exact information, just in different formatting, as after 15 university days, which has caused issues as well.
Senator Brash. Chairman Wenzel.
Point of information, I'm pretty sure whenever they resubmit those documents, it shows a resubmitted date, and so there's a difference between originally submitted and the resubmission date, but we go by the submitted date, not the resubmitted date.
Yeah.
So original submission.
My constituents have said otherwise in their personal working with the treasurer's review before it gets to finance committee in the first place, going through comptroller and then waiting a week and a half, 2 weeks for it to go through treasurer's review. They have stated in email shown to me that it counts as a second submission technically, and that they only look at that when that submission was submitted rather than if it was changed to a different request is what I'm meaning. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Do you have a follow-up question, Chairman Wenzel? You just look like you looked like you did. Sorry.
I know, does that make sense? I can try and re-explain.
Are there any other questions for the senator at this time? Senator Rojas.
I believe so, because when they asked for clarification on why the second submission did not technically fall under just a re-edit of their first submission that was technically a wrong one, they had to change it to another submission, they were told to speak to their senators and try and get backing on this bill, and that's why I'm speaking for them today.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Seeing none. Thank you, Senator Selkert. Do any other senators wish to speak on this matter? Chairman Gruner.
Sorry guys, my phone's dead, or my computer died, so I'm gonna have to try and read this on my phone. I would like to preface before I say this that I am not on the Finance Committee. As well, have I not written or edited the codes, so this is currently going off of my current understanding. I do recognize that this is sort of an unfortunate issue. A lot of this is prefaced off of a lot of miscommunications between our different departments, and as a result, I do personally believe that this is probably an internal error within student government that needs to be rectified. However, I do believe that we have a few issues with this specific piece of legislation and how it is worded. I think the first problem that we really need to address is this gray line regarding a 2/3 vote and the justification that would surround it. I believe that whenever we create these gray lines, such as where we saw where it's kind of a difference between morality and legality situation is what led to potentially some events from a few months ago, and I think that's something that we need to be careful of understanding as we move forward through. I think one of the other points that I would like to also bring up is within section 3530, where it states that upon the conclusion of this 30-day period, the provision within this code shall be automatically expired and struck from the codes and shall hold no further force or effect, unless expressly reauthorized or extended through subsequent legislation or resolution. I understand what the sunset clause is for this and how that will factor into this. However, I think that personally that section might become problematic within the wrong terms, as that implies that this could be continuously brought up over and over again. I think what the problem that we could be potentially looking at, and specifically within the words with this coding, is that what it says right now is that if there's a 2/3 vote, any request that's less than 15 university days beforehand can potentially be overlooked or bypass this rule. I believe that the retroactive aspect of this, especially for the organizations who requested money and got through part of the process just to hit a stump, is something that we need to consider, and I think that's something that should still be allowed to persist. However, I do think we should consider wording it so that way when we start to look at organizations that are requesting money from this point onwards, they are strictly held to the 15-day period. We are looking at the change of leadership. We're looking at the change of a lot of different policies. I think we need to start off from day one advocating on a strict policy. I think retroactive, looking at organizations who requested money beforehand should be allowed the exemption for this, but I think any requests from this point onwards should have to strictly adhere to the 15-day rule policy. I really think when we consider this gray line area of the 2/3 vote, we just need to consider where the grounds and the justification for that will be and how we're going to be able to justify that when some organizations get money and some don't in the coming weeks for requests that happen after this day. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Senator Hopkins.
I definitely would be. I understand that this is a very formality-lined clause. I think it would make, from some of my discussions with other senators, I think that that would make them feel a little bit more comfortable to understand that this is strictly just based off of the circumstances, and under no circumstance would we continue this 2/3 vote, because by that point, there would be pretty much zero grounds with full treasurer's support, as well as comptrollers rolling into that. So I think while it is a formality, it would make more people a little bit more perceptive to just give absolutely no chance that this becomes a future problem. I do think the main thing to understand though, and sort of in relation to where I think there might be a little bit of concern, is the fact that the way that this is currently worded, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that organizations who request tomorrow or the day afterwards can technically get the bypass on the 2/3 week if entertained by the Finance Committee. Please correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I think that's something that we need to come hard and firm on starting now.
Vice Chairman Matthews. Is it a point of information? Okay. Senator Lapsley.
The sunset clause does last 30 days, but there was a second line as well included that just said that with subsequent legislation or resolution, that could be overturned and the rule could still stay in input.
Senator Lapsley, a follow-up question? Senator Rojas.
It would have to, but I think I'm assuming it would. I think Chairman Kay might be able to elaborate a little bit better on that than I would. I think the problem simply is the fact that it's saying that there is a chance that we can continue this on. It's saying that in the coming weeks, once this 30-day period is up, if we're still in this boat of organizations that requested 15 days beforehand, that now that we've recognized that this is an issue and now that we are trying to fix it, if organizations are trying to request it, we would still let them bypass. I think that we have an issue that has been caused. We've recognized it, and we've created bills to deal with retroactively recognizing that, and that's what I think we need to do in order to provide support to the organizations that already passed through. My main concern is right now it is worded that organizations who request money can be voted 2/3 in the future. So I'm saying we just need to make sure that organizations retroactively don't follow through that.
Senator Rojas, a follow-up question.
I'm referring to as long as this piece of, like, as long as these amendments are within frame, it says that organizations can request. So like, let's say an organization with it, that, let's say the 30-day period starts now. The way it's worded, if an organization requests money 2 days from now, they technically have the ability to bypass the 15-day rule vote because of the way that this legislation has been worded now through within the amendments. However, we now recognize that this was a problem and that there were issues that needed to deal with it. My only concern is that we should be trying to address this right now and solving it for future cases rather than creating a window that allows it to continue on.
Chairman Kay.
Oh dear. Yes. 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 My particular problem is simply that right now, oh, I'm sorry, what? I think my particular problem is just that the way the legislation is worded right now is that organizations will be able to request money before the 15-day period is over, and the Finance Committee may have to entertain those. That has nothing to do with the organizations that have already requested, has nothing to do with the retroactive clause within that. I think that mostly just has to do with the fact that an organization could request money in 2 or 3 days' time, and the Finance Committee is going to have to most likely entertain that, or they're going to have to entertain none of them at all, because then that goes into where this gray line issue is of them entertaining some but not entertaining others, and without proper justification, that could lead to some misconceptions. I do want to say, like, my only concern is for future requests, especially the ones that fall within the 30-day period. I have absolutely no problem. I think the retroactive issues are on us, and I think that that is a problem that we are recognizing. All I am suggesting is that we recognize that we've had a couple issues and that we start, regardless of the fact that we're in an interim phase, regardless that a new treasurer is being impressed, regardless that a comptroller, that we start off on the right foot by communicating to all future organizations that this is exactly where we stand, that we believe that 15 days is exactly where we're going to stand. We're not going to buckle on that. Organizations, we have the records, we have the files for organizations that have already requested retroactively. This would just be saying, in a reword, potentially, if it's willing to be considered, that future organizations are not, that request within the next 30 days do not apply to the same rules as the ones that are retroactive.
I'm also going to germane the statement that the treasurer's branch is going to be non-operational. It's still operating under its normal limits, just at the moment the student body president is overseeing its functions. It's transitory phase. I just wanted to make sure it's still operating. We still have a treasurer's branch.
Oh, no, please, go ahead. Oh, no. My goal with this in advocating from this perspective is simply stating that if organizations that have not requested yet or are in the process of working on it, if they have not requested yet, then this is what I am referring to as the issue. Organizations that have already gone through, I know we talked a little bit about the original and the resubmission. My concern is strictly regarding with those that haven't even sent the original in but can still submit that. And that's where this rolls over. Organizations that already got potentially approval, especially from the treasurers, the comptrollers, I personally believe that that is probably on us. And I don't believe that they should share, that they should be caught up in that, because that is our job, that is our responsibility. My concern is making sure that from this day forwards, from this point, any organization that requests money understands that we are not being lenient on this 15-day rule. Exceptions are made for retroactive organizations that have already requested or are currently in the process of it and have potentially gotten approvals from various organizations. My idea and the leading with this is still under the understanding that we still have our Treasurer's Department in a capacity. It might be in transition. There's a lot of it going on, but we still have an obligation to recognize and handle these students' financial requests. My concern is that when we start to take over during this interim phase, while we are taking over, that we simply tell them, you have 15 university days beforehand. That's what we're sticking to. And that's for the ones that haven't been approved into the original request yet, and making that stand forward.
Chairman Kay, I would ask to think about what could maybe be stated during a period of debate versus what could be asked in a question, just because I know there's other questions on the floor. Are there any other questions? Senator Lapsley.
Forgive me, are you saying like the organizations that have already been sent funding should be held to the same standards? My standpoint on this is that mistakes were made. Miscommunications were made. Funding was given when rules were broken. It's an unfortunate situation. There was miscommunication. There was a lot going on. However, we, as of this day, right now, have a chance to send the student body a very concise message that any future allocations will be held to the 15-day rule. Previous organizations that have requested funding and have already been received funding, I don't think there's a problem with that because that's a retroactive situation.
So you are okay with those 55% breaking the rule that we're now holding single club?
Well, so with that logic, what you are implying is that we don't hold any organizations ever again to the 15-day rule because we let some already slip past it because, I apologize, sorry.
Senator Dapolito.
I personally don't have any reason to think that we would continue the 30 days, which kind of goes to argue for the standpoint that I don't think it's needed to be in there to give there any opportunity for it at all. However, to answer, because I think I kind of got like a sense of two separate questions within that, I personally think all organizations that have requested and gotten funding and have been approved, done deal, that's completed. Organizations that are currently dealing with these financial requests and these issues that are handling currently retroactive opinion, I believe that they should also be allowed to deal with the bypass. I am only concerned about future organizations requesting within the 30-day period from this point onwards who haven't started yet. I want to make sure that when these organizations that just now start their request from this point onwards start it, that we aren't having to then discuss where this gray line of what would get a 2/3 vote and what wouldn't get a 2/3 vote and where the justification for that would come from. This only pertains to future requests, not the previous ones. And that's why my concern is mostly just with the wording that says, that explains that any vote could overturn any part of it.
Senator Diapolito, a follow-up question.
If the organizations understand it from this point onwards and that we are effectively communicating it, then this should not be a problem. As long as we are properly communicating that they are currently not up to standards, then we would be communicating that to the student body before any of this becomes an issue. My goal and the hope is that we just are able to explicitly say from the get-go that we are being strict on this from this day forwards.
A follow, yeah.
I would be, I don't want to say that I would be careful with assuming what is public and what isn't public knowledge. The conversation that we are having right now is currently live, and that therefore makes it public knowledge. I wouldn't leave loopholes that can run into justification problems, legally speaking, on the idea that the student organizations requesting money would not fully understand our codes. And if that's a problem, I think that it's our responsibility to properly communicate that.
Senator Pollock.
If an organization has not requested money, because what we are referring to is future organizations, if an organization has not requested money, then it is our duty in that moment in time to go ahead and flat out tell them that they are not currently complying with our codes. That is all I am saying is for the future allocations. That has nothing to do with the ones that are currently in process, but I might be misunderstanding your question.
Senator Gavin Arriaga.
My only suggestion is that the codes be worded to explain that any allocations that are starting out from this day forwards are not included within the 2/3 vote. That's all I am saying. All I am, like, organizations that are currently in the process, organizations that have already gone through the process, that is fair. But if we continue to give like a 30-day process on this, on organizations that haven't even filed yet, which is the way that the codes are currently worded, then we are going to be in this exact same boat in 30 days where we're going to have organizations that are currently in our process less than 15 days before the event is supposed to happen, and we will be still handling that situation.
Are there any other questions? Senator Gay. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Cumby as Senator Gay's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Gay. Granted. Senator Mozo. Do you mean to call to the previous question? I'm not following the motion. If you want the Senate to vote on it right now, that would be a motion to the previous question. All right, that would be a roll call vote now. The clerk will call the roll. Senator Lapsley, is it pressing? Yeah. In the in the future, I've got it. Don't worry. Yeah, there was a motion for the previous question. Normally, it passes by unanimous consent. There was an objection, so now we must do a roll call vote to see if 2/3.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Kiki Dapolito. Grant Dworzowski. Nicholas Gavin Arriaga. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Wang. Muhammad Iftikhar. Anita John.
Iftikhar, aye or nay?
Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Nay. Lakika Cassetti.
Aye.
Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mia LaPenta.
I'd ask that everyone stops talking so the clerk can hear, please.
Donnie Lapsley. Jeffrey Lyons. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Landon Pollock. Soraya Romali. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Silkert. Lucas Solomon. Amaya Sal. Thomas Spurgeon. William Wenzel. Lawson Windsor. Marion Winters.
By a vote of 13 ayes, 26 nays, and 1 abstention, the motion to the previous question has failed. Senator Gruner still has the well at this time. Are there any other questions for the senator? Chairman Kay. Yeah, let's do a 5-minute recess. So I'll expect to see everybody back at 7:43. also fine.
Yeah, but I think
You can take this back. Thank you.
that
It's like a speed charger.
that have
My phone's
had
at like
the
80%.
bypass, the 55%, should be notified in the next 30 days or before that, and make sure that
Yeah.
they like if they have an event planned for like I don't know.
Yeah.
They should know
Yeah.
that they should be they're not eligible to request for funding.
The Senate will now come to order. Please be seated. All right. Are there any other questions for Senator Gruner at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other senators wishing to speak on this bill? Chairman Barnes.
All right, I'm gonna keep it pretty short because I know we're running a little low on time, but I do have a few problems with this bill. I do want to acknowledge that student government as a whole clearly made mistakes. There was miscommunication, rules weren't followed, whether that's within Senate, the Treasurer's branch, I don't personally know. I'm not involved with Finance Committee, stuff like that, so I won't directly say there. But what I can say that the orgs did not follow the rules. The university day is defined in the codes. Read it out earlier, I believe it was section 6140, something along that line. It stated during the treasurer's workshop that you have a 15-day period to get that request in and then to get the money. And then with that, it's also stated on various student government informational, like on the website, in the codes, things like that. Like I said, not to say that other members of student government messed up. Completely did, and I think that should also be looked into. But specifically with the bill, the problems I'm having are the 2/3 vote. I think that kind of creates some bias, fairness, and consistency questions that could arise from that. And then with the 30-day precedent, I don't think that's fair to directly ignore that rule, the 15-day rule, for the 30 days after to rewind and make sure that the ones of the 55% that didn't follow that rule can get their money. I don't think that's fair for, like, if I requested money for an org 3 days before an event, that I can get the money because it's the 30-day window. So that's where I kind of have a problem with that. And then I also think it sets a very dangerous precedent moving forward with finance, where if something happens, we can just go into the codes and fix it real quick, rather than kind of trying to backtrack first, figure out where the problem initially happened within student government, and then revisit this. So that's my problem with it. To take up time, I'm going to yield to the well.
Do any other senators wish to speak on this matter? Vice Chairman Matthews.
So I'm in complete agreement with Chairman Gruner about the about sending the wrong message to student organizations, that if they do submit their request late, that we can override them. I think that is a very, very valid concern, and I think that is something that we need to address in the future. I would be very happy to write legislation with you to, I think that'd be fun to do some collaboration, to reform the Treasurer's branch a little bit, to make sure that student organizations know that we are sticking by this 15 University Day rule. However, it's not a rule that we have really effectively enforced up to this point until 2 weeks ago. And I don't know. I just don't see, I'm a person who, like, I like to weigh things. And if I weigh the consequences of having these organizations out $40,000 and maybe setting a slightly bad precedent with the codes, I don't think that's really much of a decision to make there. I would like to ask you guys, what are we doing here? If we are too worried about our precious codes to deny this money for mistakes that we made, I mean, I think we have some real soul searching to do with that. And so, I don't know. That's what I would like to say on that. I'm not really. I guess I yield to questions.
Senator Hopkins.
So I think a lot of the senators here saying have a problem with
I would absolutely say that we do. I mean, I would point to the $10,000 rule that we have in place already. That is, I think it's an exact copy paste of the code that is in this bill right here, where we have the authority to allow an organization to request on a, I think it's a fiscal year basis, more than the $10,000. And that's something that we have done in the past. So yeah, that answers your question.
Chairman Barnes.
So following this bill, whether it passes, whether it doesn't, do you think there should be investigations and we should look further into, like, what happened within student government, whether that's the Senate branch, the Treasurer's branch, and hold those members of student government accountable?
Ideally, yes. I think we are limited in our capacity, not in our roles as senators, but in our capacity as people, as very busy people, all of us. So that's something that I would get behind easily, if that's something where we were able to create an effective mechanism to do that. An audit of the Treasurer's branch, that's something that I'd get behind. It'd take quite a bit of time to really go through those details, but yeah, I would not have any issues with that.
Senator Miller.
Well, that's true. And I myself have been given a speed ticket, despite the fact that I was going the exact same speed as the car next to me, which is unfortunate. But it's a rule that it's not that we didn't enforce the rule purposefully. Like, we didn't not enforce the rule on purpose, is what I'm trying to say. The Finance Committee, in a way, kind of woke up to the fact that this rule was being broken because we decided to double check some of these events. And it's unfortunate for these organizations that we did that, because we realized, oh, okay, well, they're not actually to the T following our rules, and we had to deny them. And that's something that we hadn't done in the past, because as I was saying about an hour ago, the Treasurer's branch, usually when these requests are sent to us, we don't even have to worry about that, because in the normal functioning of that branch, those issues are ironed out long before they get to the Finance Committee.
Are there any other questions? Senator Miller.
Not on purpose. Sorry to interrupt, but that is not at all what I was trying to imply there. What's your question? Sorry, I'm a little lost, if I'm going to be honest. Yes, but the difference here is that the police in this situation are enforcing those rules. They're not going to catch everybody, but they are actively trying to enforce that speed limit. Whereas with us, we were not actively trying to enforce this 15-day rule. It was assumed, as it has always been assumed, that if an organization's request gets to our point, we don't even have to check for it. It already abides by that. So, I guess, how can I relate this back to your metaphor? 2 weeks ago, we decided to turn on our radars, and we started catching people.
Senator Lapsley? Okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other senators wishing to speak on this legislation at this time? Senator Rojas?
Hello, everybody. I believe that a lot of the concerns with this bill are very coming from a good place, in my opinion. But I think that we should really focus on the communications from both the student, the Treasurer's Branch and the Finance Committee, almost student government as a whole. The communications that were sent out to these organizations through the workshop, through their comptroller's actions, and through the actions that were relayed through previous organizations indicated that we did not essentially care about the 15 university day rule, and these organizations were under the impression through either official or unofficial communications of student government that this was going to be the case. I believe that these legislation assumes that, hey, look, the communication that we may have had with these organizations is incorrect, and the fact that these organizations got put in the middle of it is wrong, so we're trying to fix that. However, with these future with any future request that's going to come by, we are trying to make it so that they do abide by the 15-day policy. I would also like to remind everybody of the purpose of these funds. I feel like we've lost a little track and gone a little focused on exactly what it is that it says in the codes, but we forget that this is students' tuition that we're talking about. This is for the students, and this is from the students, and it's for the students. And fundamentally, I think that if something is a good investment for the university to make, if, for example, an organization is hosting an event that you believe is for the benefit of those students, whether or not they applied 14 or 15 days before the organization, I believe that this is where our discretion comes in as senators in order to push legislation that makes it so that we are able to allocate funds to organizations that are very deserving of these funds. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Brash. Chairwoman Cassetti.
Not yet. Hopefully never.
Senator Matthews. There's been a motion to appoint Chairman Kay as Senator Matthews' proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Matthews. Granted. Senator Miller. Sorry to interrupt. The clock has just struck 8, so technically we're at the max per the codes as to what we can operate within, because Senate is held to a max of 2.5 hours. Y'all, by a vote of 2/3, can vote for continuance for a set amount of time. So I would entertain a motion if somebody has a set number of minutes that they'd like to extend Senate by. Chairman Kay. There's been a motion for the continuance of this Senate session on November 6th, 2024 by 15 minutes to 8:15 p.m. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Senate is now extended by 15 minutes. If one of my staff members could start a timer, please. Let me know when it's ready.
Can I address Senator Mann?
Okay, ready? Go. Chairman Kay. There's been a motion to call the previous question.
Am I allowed to address her concerns first? How would that?
If you want to object to the motion to call the previous question, but then we'd have to roll call vote.
I have a quick comment.
Sure, yeah.
We divide the budget into two halves, so we have the spring budget and the fall budget. So I believe that the misconception that we're essentially taking money away from future organizations is mitigated by that divide. Also, the money is supposed to be allocated anyway. We are supposed to run out of money, if that helps.
All right, there's been a motion to call the previous question. Seeing no objections, we are now on the call of the previous question. The question is of the passage of SBL 11633. Senator Rojas, you're able to sit down. This will be a roll call vote, hopefully our last one of the night. Just a reminder, a vote for aye is in the affirmative of the passage of this bill, and a vote for nay in the negative would be for the failure of this bill. The clerk will now call the roll. Please be very, very loud and enunciate.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Kiki Depolito. Grant Dworzowski. Nicholas Gavin Arriaga. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Sorry. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Huang. Muhammad Iftikhar. Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mila Penza. Jeffrey Lyons. Donnie Lapsley. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Landon Pollock. Ainsley Reed. Soraya Romali. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Silkert. Lucas Solomon. Amaya Sowell. Thomas Spurgeon. William Wenzel. Lawson Windsor. Marion Winters.
By a vote of 31 ayes to 8 nays, SBL 11633 has been adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, I believe. Sorry, my script's hidden under all my papers. All right, hearing none, we are now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Okay, welcome back, Senator Mozo. We voted and we're on discussion. Okay. Hearing none, we're now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? I don't have an announcement. I love you guys. If you need to talk to me, give me an hour. With no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. William.
Tommy